Well, hello, everybody. We were talking about it's kind of cold here in Pennsylvania. It's chilly season. I had a wonderful nap today. Candace is excited to make chili because now she lives in a cold place. Steve's on the other side of the world. Do they have snow in Australia, Steve?
Yeah, not at the moment though. It is like over 30 degrees and I'm currently sweating because my fan isn't working in the office, but that's okay because hopefully the tennis will be good.
That's right, folks, because this is Eat Sleep Tennis. We're not here to talk about chili. We're not here to talk about even the weather or how great my nap was. There's tennis, and today we're here to actually watch some live tennis. Naomi Osaka is playing Serena Williams. They're warming up right now. They finally got Serena Williams out of the gym or whatever. I'm sorry that they had to interrupt her here to play some tennis. But this should be a very exciting match. I think, anyone that's a fan of women's tennis that understands kind of the historical impact here of what's happening, I think without too much argument, the greatest women's tennis player, if not one of the greatest individual athletes in the history of planet Earth, against what seems to be the next great women's tennis player, if not someone who has a chance to, really make Serena Williams' accomplishments look less insane. I'll start with you here, Candace. How do you feel about this match? What are you excited for? And then do you have any plays here as the players start to get on court?
I am excited. I mean, I already was excited, and I think we all were for the prospect of this match. And then when we saw what happened on the other half of the draw, this feels even larger, right? Because whoever wins this, you think, this is their tournament for the taking and then some. Obviously, the two of them have been so close in the past in their head-to-head matchups. Serena winning twice, Osaka winning twice. What happens here? Well, that remains to be seen, but it's going to be an incredible match, especially, I think, given how well Serena has been playing. That's what really makes it even more exciting, that we know she's playing at a high level once again. Both of them have shown the potential to play at their best, and both of them have shown some lulls in their matches as well. So I think it's going to really be a matter of which of the two of them can maintain that higher level and avoid those kind of lapses, maybe mental lapses, throughout the course of the match. Plays wise, we'll see what winds up happening. I know you pointed it out though at one point pre-match, because they're just getting started here, Alex, but it was surprising pre-match how large Serena's price got. It was pretty swiftly backed back down, but in places you were seeing her around 150, which was surprising given their history.
Now, Steve, maybe a more pointed question for you. A thought I had yesterday at some point thinking about this match. Is this the best Serena Williams Naomi Osaka has ever played?
I think so. When you look back and you look back, I know that Naomi had a bit of a lean patch, I think, in the middle of 2019, I think, where they may have met there for a period. But I think so. When you look at the movement of Serena, and this is probably the best we've seen her move and cover the court and play since probably since she came back to the tour as a mother. So look, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of all unfolds. And looking at the first couple of points here, it's Osaka just starting with a double fault on the third point is an interesting look after I think Serena had to put a little bit of pressure on her by blasting a second serve return back at her.
As someone that was hoping to grab a nicer price here on Serena, I was kind of hoping for an Osaka hold here. And you hit the nail on the head, Candace. I was really surprised. Osaka here, I'm trying to remember what Serena's price opened, because that's the one I've been watching all day. It was right around plus 110 or 2.1 or so in that range, and got all the way up to at one point today around plus 150 or 2.5. I'm looking at live here. It looks like the price I'm looking at. Wow, Serena here with a couple break points early. So she's now just plus 105 live, just moved to minus 105 here. A really exciting start.
It definitely is. I mean, it's really surprising. It seems like we're seeing issues here with Osaka on her ball toss. On a couple of first serves, she caught the ball again, tried to do it again, and those were both the ones that she had those double faults. So something to keep an eye on. I mean, obviously not there, so I'm not sure if it showed that the roof was open. So I'm not sure if maybe there's some sort of wind or shadows or sun in her eyes, but it does seem to be a pointed struggle with that ball toss for Osaka.
Yeah, I was intrigued that this was the first match of the day. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
the sun is more of an issue. So they've started at 2 p.m. local time. So I think the sun will probably be more of an issue up the far end of the court for anyone watching it on TV, which looks to have been the case, I think, with Osaka struggling a little bit. If you look back to the ATP Cup, I think there was a match that Novak Djokovic was playing in a similar time and was really struggling with it. So it'll be interesting to see how they both go, kind of holding serve down that far end in particular.
Now we see here, we're a little ahead on the score. We got flash score up here, and I'm just a touch behind. I don't know if either of you guys have seen Serena Williams break yet, but it looks like she's going to break here on this next point. I'm curious to see what Osaka does. It does look like Osaka's a little off. I was curious, Candace, you said her ball toss looks a little funky. Steve, I know that you've been maybe not totally focused, but have you seen anything like that? Oh, wow, it just buries it into the net.
Yeah, I think a little bit. And obviously, this is a little bit of a change to the last couple of rounds. There is a crowd of, it's not a big crowd, but it's a crowd nonetheless in at Rod Laver Arena. So there are a few things that are a little bit different to the last couple of rounds. And yeah, it is a very shaky and nervous start from Osaka. But I think we saw that against Shea and we saw that against Jabeur as well, that Osaka did start a little on the slow side, but then built into the match as it went on.
Yeah. So as I start to look down here, again, just touching on the price, Serena up a break. It looks like she's held here on the first point. She's minus 120 here. That's interesting. She just held and her price went from minus 130 to minus 120. That's odd. Some of these live moves are kind of interesting. The total's at 22.5.
I can confirm it is very hot here in Melbourne today. So I don't envy them being out on court at the moment. And I guess, for the sake of these two players, at least they had the day off. Whereas, you go to Mahova and Brady in the next one, they're backing up within, just over 24 hours after coming off court. So it'll be interesting to see how they go a little bit later on.
They, like you, don't have a fan, Steve.
How good would it be to have a fan?
Well, they have several fans in the stands.
Right? There you go.
Maybe the fans brought fans. And they can.
Those fans are back. My fan is not here. But that's okay. I can live.
I think it's underestimated that you've got the blue court there. I bet that thing just soaks up heat. I can only imagine how hot it is actually standing down on that court. I mean, Steve, do you have any idea? I know every once in a while you get nice tickets and you get real close there. I mean, how much hotter is it, do you think, as you get down there versus, what you're looking up? Say you look up the temperature in Melbourne. I mean, is it comparable or is it significantly hotter, you think, down there?
Look, it's hotter on the court. There's no kind of way around that. I remember back when I was a ball kid for 2 years, standing on on particularly hot days, standing there that, you feel like your shoes are about to melt off your feet, that it's just relentless. If you think about it, it's effectively like a concrete or an asphalt. It gets hot. It gets very hot very quickly. So it's in this instance, they're probably, there is a little bit of a breeze today, which may help them a little bit, but it's not the easiest conditions to play tennis in.
Now, maybe before I get to a more serious and interesting comment, Candace, can you imagine little Stevie out there running around catching balls?
No, that would require him running. I can't imagine that.
Now, that's interesting because he's so serious. It's hard for me to picture him as like a child. Like I just see like a tinier Steve. Like it's a shorter, very serious little 8-year-old.
Calculator. Maybe he has like a calculator in his pocket, a pen protector.
He wore collared shirts at a very early age. I think
yes.
I have to say that. What a fun thing there. Yeah. It's, Steve, to maybe circle back to a more serious comment on your point. I think people underestimate how hard it is to play tennis. I mean, this is the loneliest sport in the world. I mean, even golfers have caddies. They're out there by themselves. They're down below. No matter where you are, it's much hotter down there. I imagine it's almost impossible for any sort of breeze to get down there. I know there is a difference between playing indoor and outdoor, obviously, so there must be something going on. But when you get into some of these big arenas here, it's got to be very tough. So what do you guys think in terms of this match? I mean, the longer it goes, who does it favor, you think, Steve?
Sorry, I've just popped a comment up on the screen that you might want to read there, Alex.
Ready.
I think the longer this match goes, the more it favors Osaka. But look, it's this first set's going to be crucial for Serena. Up an early break, she needs to be able to kind of capitalize and really start to put the pressure on Osaka. We saw her come back from a set down against Muguruza, but in a semi-final against Serena with a stack of momentum's a bit of a different game.
Yeah, consolidates her break here early. It looks like live now. It was minus 155. They crossed it out. It's moving around here a little bit. And it looks like because Osaka here is okay, she held, so that number's moving around. How about you, Candace? What do you think about this? I mean, as the match goes longer, do you agree with Steve, or have we seen kind of a renewed Serena? I thought her performance against Halep was really impressive to see her move around like that, and I guess Osaka has done better as matches go on. But I wonder if that was more of a mental thing, and I don't expect Serena maybe to get nervous the way some of her opponents have. What do you think?
I agree. I'm also finding it interesting that there was another ball toss issue for Osaka on the other side of the court, because Steve was talking about how one side maybe there's more sun than the other. She's had issues now on both sides, so again, something to keep an eye on. But I would say the longer that the match goes, definitely more favorable to Osaka. Serena's been moving well and has been playing well, but I do think that the lapses that she's had in her game have been more pronounced than they have been for Osaka. So if it were to go long, that would be a suggestion to me that maybe Serena isn't playing at a consistent level from probably what she needs to be to win this match. I don't think there's a doubt for me in my mind that Serena obviously can win this match and the level is there, but that the more matches you play and the longer you play with the two of them at their current levels, more often you're going to have Osaka win. I mean, I come from a world of horse racing, I suppose, originally. And so the thought is always the longer the race, the better chance that the better horse wins. And that's kind of how I view this, that at this stage of their careers, Osaka is generally the better player. So the longer you go, the more likely she gets the job done.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's kind of a big point here watching 30-15. Osaka looks like she's trying to do her little trot, but she's kind of hurrying through it. It was something I noticed with Barty last night. If we want to touch on that a little bit, for I guess maybe about half a dozen to 8 or so games, it just looked like Barty was going at double speed for almost no reason.
You almost wonder if it's like part of the routine and you just are anxiously rushing yourself through the routine because you feel compelled to do it. And not because you're just feeling good and comfortable and relaxed. I mean, you'll see the same if you watch golf with some of the guys who, and I'm sure people who watch golf know, there are certain guys who re-grip the club a certain number of times before you'll make that swing. And you'll notice when guys get nervous, aren't playing well, or frustrated, that will become rushed or maybe will become exaggerated.
And I think when you look at the start of this match and you look at kind of what separates the top players from kind of the next, from 20 down, I guess, from there, it's the ability when you're in these positions when they're down a break early or they're down in sets to really try and keep it just to one break a serve. And it's something that we saw with Serena did it against Halep and was able to kind of put that pressure on. Osaka has been able to save a break point here, and if she can push here to hold, it can at least feel like she's starting to make some inroads, I guess, on her serve. And it's a little bit like using the example yesterday of Jennifer Brady in the first set against Pegula, that she was really up against it through the first kind of 6-7 games where she just couldn't find her serve at all, but she kept it close. Pegula did end up taking the set, but she was able to keep it competitive still when she wasn't anywhere near her best, as Osaka here holds for 2-1.
Yeah, that was a big hold. It was nice for her to kind of get herself together, survive the break point, and then have a couple nice serves. It does look like Serena's kind of focus on maybe hitting more winners. She seems to be playing pretty aggressive here. You guys seeing the same thing?
Definitely.
Yeah, it looks like she's trying to force as many short points as possible. Let's see if Osaka can pull herself together here during the commercial break. Now, Steve, I know you put together some nice slides here. Do we maybe want to take a look at the path either of these women have taken to get here?
I'm distracted. They're showing me a platypus on TV. Now I want to come to Australia.
I don't
We have
even
to
remember
wait.
the last time I saw one, so I don't think you're missing too much.
There's
Fun
not a lot of
fact,
platypi
in
wandering
Melbourne
around.
at the zoo, you can go swimming with the platypus. There's like a year wait. I know this because I've researched it to do it.
Is the plural of platypus platypus? I know the
I
plural of
don't
moose is
know.
moose.
Platypi, I think.
Might be.
Ooh.
It's
There's
tough
a
to say. And
there's
while
little.
Steve pulls that up, again, checking here at some of the live markets, things haven't moved too much. Serena's on serve here. She's minus 150. You get Naomi Osaka at plus 115 or 2.15. Looks like Osaka's taking just a little bit of money. That's starting to come down. Total at 22.5, just a huge number. It'd be really interesting to see here if we get 2 sets or not. I think a lot of people either have that over 22 or over 2.5 sets. I hope we get 3 sets. It'd be more fun, but I think it's going to end up being a big decision.
We've just got the roads to the semi-final up on the screen at the moment. So look, fairly dominant overall for both players. They both had that slip up in the fourth round, but when you look at the opponents that they both faced in the fourth round, they could easily be the final of basically any women's tournament below Grand Slam level. I think at the moment we have with Sabalenka and Muguruza there. So it's they were both then able to respond against smaller players who perhaps don't hit as hard in Halep and Shea. And now they find themselves here in the semi-finals.
Definitely. I think for me, at least just as an observer, I thought throughout the course of the tournament, we've seen more improvement from Serena in that those first couple of matches, she won them without being troubled too much. But I didn't think watching them that her movement looked exceptional. And, we're all kind of a little bit older, like she is too. And I mean, maybe it just takes a couple of matches. It takes a couple of days to loosen up the joints, because it really has been remarkable how much more fit and how much better she's moved here in the later portions of the tournament. It almost makes me think that, her camp and everybody really got her preparation spot on for this.
Now, she absolutely got away with one in that first set against Potapova. I think Potapova served for that first set, and
Yeah, she did.
She had a number of set points, and I think every single one of the set points was a double fault, and just she couldn't get it in. And then also Potapova had a 4-2 lead, or had a lead in that tiebreak as well before Serena ran away with it in the second set. So, look, it didn't go all her way, but look, we've seen maybe something that Barty found out yesterday is having those little moments that do test you early on in the tournament can certainly come back to help you a little bit later on.
It would be remarkable to find out because, we talk about all these stats that we follow in tennis, but one stat that would be awesome to find out are opponents' double faults against you. I wonder how many times opponents double fault against someone like Serena, because they know that especially if it's someone who's not a huge hitter, they know that if that ball is not perfectly placed, it's going to be a grand slam coming back at you the other direction. It would be fascinating to find out.
And I think that's something that Halep felt the other night when they played. I think it was the very first service return from Serena. I think she hit it back almost harder than I think the serve came in and hit it clean for a winner. If she can start to do that early, when you look at particularly Osaka this tournament and more recently overall, she's trying to go bigger on her first serve, and her percentage has dropped a little bit. But if she can't find her range with that first serve at times, Serena's going to attack the second serve of Osaka.
A couple nice points here from Osaka to get it to deuce. I like seeing her come to net like this. I like anybody coming to net, honestly. I appreciate that aggressive style of tennis, but I think that shows a level of confidence. And it's nice to see Osaka attacking here. We're back at deuce. Well, it looks like Serena has got the advantage here, but I think this is still kind of a confidence building point for Osaka, even if she can't close that down the break.
I think for her at this point, it's just a matter of hanging around, right? Sometimes if you aren't playing your best tennis, I think you have to trust. It's almost a bit like an NBA game for you, Alex, who, you love the basketball. In basketball, they always say they always make a run. And I think if you're a top player, you really have to believe that that's what's going to happen as well. Hang in there through the lull and know that you're going to refine your form, and then you can make an impression. But the biggest thing you can't let happen, obviously, in these moments is just to be blasted off the court immediately.
Well, yeah, and there's two parts to this. Is obviously, you know, Osaka did a great job of saving that break point in the third game, and you know, all of a sudden there is that little bit of extra pressure here now. Serena serving at 2-1 juice instead of serving at 3-love juice.
Some really high level of shots here. That's Serena lunging forehand to hit that angle perfectly. Osaka's winner right there just to get it back to deuce. That was lovely. I feel like I get more.
I feel like I have even more of an appreciation for Serena's, you know, her service motion or the motion of her forehand in this outfit, because her arms are such bright colors. You see like every bit of her body more than you typically would.
Do you think it's an intimidation thing to try to wear bright colors like that?
Maybe it's intimidation outfit, and I'm still going to crush you. I'd be intimidated. I'd be intimidated if she walked out in that. I'm thinking like, whoa. I mean, maybe the intimidating part, obviously part of it too, is like, you know, I've only seen Serena in person a couple of times, but obviously, you know, we know she's so athletic, so muscular, you know, so incredibly built for the sport of tennis. And maybe that's what's more imposing. Obviously, an outfit like that shows off her physique even more.
It does present like an interesting question with Serena. So you look at, you know, obviously she's fallen short a couple of times over the last couple of years. Is it more to do with her getting older and perhaps losing maybe half a step in terms of her speed and her movement? Or is it more the fact that most challenges to her overall now are on the you know, they're a little bit stronger. They're able to kind of hold themselves, you know, they can hold Serena to account a little bit more in rallies and to be able to kind of, you know, hit back harder as well. Is it more the age thing, or do you think it's more the actual opponents and it's not like she's just running through the likes of, you know, Wozniacki, Radwanska, Ivanovic, and all those others that we've seen?
I think it's something in between those, and that's that these younger players now, I think, are more battle hardened, as you say, and maybe better at a younger age as far as their strength goes and their ability to hit the ball hard. But I also think a big part of it, and you can never discount the mental game, as we always talk about in this sport. And I think a big part of it is that this younger group, you know, the Osaka age group of women who are making their way towards, you know, the top 10 or top 20, I think they were making their way through when Serena was playing some of her worst tennis. And so maybe some of them were able to win sets or win pivotal points or even win matches in the case of someone like Osaka. So that intimidation factor that was there for the players of the generation just a little bit older than them, I don't think it's necessarily there. I think there's a respect for what she's done and a respect for what she can do on the court. But having been able to, you know, even just break her serve or something, you know, do something that you normally wouldn't have been able to do against peak Serena, that would give you all the confidence in the world. There's something to be said about trying to do something if you know you can do it, if you've done it before.
I like what you said there. The field level is not there, but I also think the level of competition has gotten to be much more difficult. As I start to flip back, I know that she had to play against her sister, of course, Venus Williams. But as I start to look back at some of the names, I mean, I think you kind of touched on something there, Steve. You know, for the mid to late 2000s, or even really most of the 2000s, there was either older players kind of on their way out, or a lot of players that never really reached the same level. But as I start to look at some of her losses more recently, they're to players like Bianca Andreescu, Sophia Kenin, Naomi Osaka, even Garbina Muguruza, players like that. I think that you make a good point there. The level of overall talent in the WTA is, I think, much higher.
And I think of all the players that Serena's faced across her career that have been top 10, I think it's only Osaka and Kenin are the only two at the moment that have a positive or break even head-to-head record against Serena. I think Muguruza might be 3-3. I think they have a positive record. I think Andreescu is 2-0 and Kenin might be 1-0. Something along those lines.
Yeah, it's possible.
And it again comes back to, we were talking about kind of winning key points and, trying to being the better player in the big moments. Osaka again saves another break point. So, in the 2 games she's won so far, her first one she won it saving a break point, and the second one she got managed to break Serena Williams' serve from 40-15. So if she can get this one here, it's going to be, I think she'll feel pretty fortunate to be up 3-2.
It looks like she's kind of starting to take control of this match. What do you think, Candace?
Candace is on mute.
She must be.
It feels like it for the time being. My dog is playing loudly in the other room. It feels like it for the time being, but I say that also having watched a number of Serena's matches this tournament and having felt like, okay, this is it. This is the moment she loses, and she never does. So, you just wonder if this is going to be a match that is going to be back and forth throughout the course of it.
I certainly hope so. We've seen it so far, and I think that is what we're going to see. Watch the 2 of their levels kind of go up and down, and see who wins some of these clutch points. I mean, already here, it looks like Serena's got us back to deuce. I think this is going to be a really interesting game.
That's the thing. It's been a match of very fine margins to begin, but I think, if Osaka can get out of this game, she's certainly lifted across the first 5 games. She's slowly built into this set.
Definitely.
You're looking at the live line. We're starting to come back to pregame. Serena back to right around 2.45 or plus 145. Again, this was the Osaka advantage. Let's see if she closes it out. We get back to deuce.
Seems to be more errors coming from Serena's racket.
She's definitely playing a more aggressive brand of tennis. That looks like Osaka gets the hold here. Serena now at the plus 160 live.
Ooh.
Postal says it's 22.5. Man, is that tempting.
Is it as tempting knowing that Osaka's just won the last 3 games in a row? Or would you?
No, that's why I haven't bet it. That's why it's tempting. And
He's only tempted.
Sorry.
I liked it. You tried. You got the right question.
Just save your money for Brady minus 3.5 later.
Ooh.
Somebody goes at Brady outright. I definitely am not hedging here. And man, would I really like to double down, but I don't know if I have the guts or the gumption to do such a thing. You really like Brady there, don't you, Steve?
I do, and I'm on Brady outright as well. So I went again. Yeah, my preview went up on the Betfair Hub earlier. I think when you look at how, just while we're in the change of MC, we'll quickly talk about that next match. When you look at how Brady and Mahova handled yesterday and kind of their body language and how they just covered the match, I guess, from start to finish. I mean, Mahova didn't look like she won, but she also didn't look fantastic. She said she's been struggling with an abdominal injury across the tournament. These two have now had to back up and play again 24 hours later, which I think suits Brady a lot more than it does Mahova. I think that the couple of lead-in tournaments, Mahova had to play back-to-back matches and actually withdrew in Abu Dhabi and in Melbourne the week before. So she wasn't able to she didn't feel up to that level to be able to, play out a full week and play back-to-back days. And I just think Brady overall, I think her game is far more suited to playing in these hot conditions. Her response to losing the first set to Pegula yesterday was pretty impressive. So I'm pretty happy to go with the minus 3.5 there. And yeah, I've left I had a win on the Brady to win the quarter. So I don't feel so bad about letting this one go through now, and hopefully she can make it into the final at 36-1.
I would love that. How about you, Candace?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that match?
Same. I think that was Brady was one of the few people that when we went through our initial discussion of the tournament that we all were in agreement that she had a very nice draw and that we thought she was going to make it quite far. So I'm the same. She scared me in that first set against Pegula, but as Steve mentioned, she really came around after that, and it's something I have a lot of respect for.
That was a really fun match.
How are you feeling, Alex, down a set?
Not great, but it looked like one of those matches where Brady was just kind of too hyped up and she needed to almost calm down. She spent a lot of that first set trying to do all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, it's not a surprise that Jennifer Brady is my favorite player. If you know that Aryna Sabalenka is one of my other favorite players, to watch the two of them is very similar, but kind of different shades or somewhere on the same spectrum of like these really aggressive players that spend most of the time looking around, like staring at their bracket, looking at, if it's Sabalenka, looking at that tattoo on her arm, talking to themselves, and just basically playing balls to the wall, aggressive tennis. And Brady she looked kind of just too angry and upset to be there playing Pegula, somebody who had beaten her, I think maybe 2-3 weeks earlier or so. But I think it's going to end up being a great learning opportunity for Pegula. She looked like she really celebrated, frankly, winning that first set, and then kind of got tired for the last two sets, frankly. And I hope that she kind of takes that away and goes back and works a little harder, trying to make sure that again, she doesn't get that excited. I thought she actually had a pretty good chance to win that match. I never felt totally comfortable, even with Brady kind of blowing her away in the second.
And it was great because us here in the States got a bunch of Buffalo Bills jokes.
Some great play from Osaka here. She's got a couple break points, really just doing a nice job of dictating and pushing Serena around here. I love this backhand here to set up the couple break points. I wish more players went down the line.
I know Osaka did go down the line there, but Serena really camped over in that corner, didn't she? She had no desire to come back to the middle. It was basically saying, if you hit that shot, you don't even need to get it within a couple of feet of the line. If you can just put it somehow over the tallest part of the net, then off you go.
Yeah.
Just seeing the break point right now, kind of same thing. Serena just kind of watched it go by her. I hope she's not getting tired or something goofy's going on out here. But you're right. Her movement the last few points was not ideal.
I wonder if, and we saw something to this effect at one point against Halep when she kind of lost the plot a little and she came back. You wonder what it is that's causing that, because it doesn't seem to be a fitness issue. Again, against Halep, similar happened. She kind of wasn't really wanting to move. People were saying, is she hurt? She was kind of pointing to her legs. I know at least here in the States, the commentators were like, oh, that's not good. Why is she pointing at her legs? And then 3 games later, she's zipping all over the court. So you wonder what it is.
And we watch Osaka here. It looks like it's going to be a pretty quick hold to start. Serena has definitely slowed down. It's strange. Like you said, she's moved very well. I mean, that Halep match was impressive. I almost wonder, maybe she's getting tired hitting so many hard shots like this, but that's also hard for me to think given kind of the past she had here. When Steve had that graphic up, I mean, she's played a bunch of power hitters, survived with Sabalenka doing that. So I wonder what's going on here. Something looks off.
Looking at her and how she's going kind of point to point, she doesn't look tired as such. She just looks like she's almost overthinking it a little bit. Like if you think back, if we rewound, 15 minutes, she was, Osaka was serving at love 230-40. Now it's 5-2. It's gone from, a point away from a double break to, a 2-5 deficit pretty quickly with not a lot of resistance. So it looks like, Serena felt like, and looking through those first couple of games, she was reading kind of what Osaka was going to do relatively well. And now things have started to turn a bit. And now it's almost like an element of uncertainty that we probably don't see a lot with Serena. In that, I would say it's not a number of those points there with how Serena's moving. I don't think, Serena's not used to having such little control, I guess, in points so consistently.
Yeah, I mean,
Have you
even
guys
just
seen?
walking,
Sorry, go ahead, Candace.
I'll say even just walking over to the chair just now, I thought she looked really perplexed. She just didn't look like she really knows what's going on, or she doesn't seem mad per se. She just looked a little confused.
And I think Osaka does have a slightly different look to, obviously, we've said that Serena's come up against a lot of big hitters across the course of the fortnight. But I feel like Osaka, she can kind of vary her pace a little bit. She can use angles a little bit more. When you think back to kind of Sabalenka and some of the other players that she's faced, they don't really have that variety. It's kind of I'm going to hit it hard, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to hit it a little bit harder, and we're going to see what happens. Whereas I think here, Osaka's realizing, and she's got some extra strings to her bow to be able to go, well, hang on, what can I do here to try and change things up a bit? And if she can keep redirecting down the line like she is, then it's going to be tricky. We've got Serena serving here with new balls.
And taking a look, she's got these first couple points under her belt. The live line, though, still Serena, plus 350 or $4.50, if you will. Do either of you have interest in the dog here? It looks like you get plus 4.5 games at plus money, which means there's a plus 5 probably floating around there. The total is finally down now to 20.5. Again, remember, it was hanging at 22.5 for a while. How do you guys feel about those prices? Any interest on either side at this point?
I don't think I do in that. I mean, if anyone's kind of been following along what I had from the outright selections and kind of the trying to kind of form a bit of a decent book towards the end of the tournament, you could maybe make a case of putting a little bit of Serena to win the tournament, because I guess obviously you've got a little bit of Osaka involved already and already got a little bit on Brady, that maybe she's out over in the near $10, I guess, for the tournament now in this position, that might be worth a play.
I think you're right. I feel like Serena here, that's a much better way to attack it.
And I think that's the thing. When you look at how, what would you price up Serena against Brady and Mahova? I think that would be the better angle to kind of look to here. If you have that ability and that there's outright markets available for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think whoever wins this match is a favorite over whoever wins the other match. If it's Mahova, we're talking about a pretty big favorite. If it's Brady, I think it's a nominal favorite, but not in that minus 200 to 300 range.
Yeah, and that conversation came up last night. I had a few. Well, someone sent a question to me, so I backed Tsitsipas money line and plus 3.5 games. I think it was about 10 hours before the match started, and by the time the match came around, I think Tsitsipas started at plus 320, I think it was, and they were asking, would you go again at that price? And I didn't actually take the plus 320, but he ended up being, I think he got out to 19-1 to, in the outright markets at the same time, which is actually longer than he was on day one of the Australian Open. So
wow.
Ended up taking a little bit extra there. Obviously, I thought that, look at me, I'm taking a bit of value. He's got out to $19 from $13, whatever it was. Anyway, I think he ended up hitting about 120 when he was down two sets to love. But that's fine. We can move past that. It was actually what started as a very boring match, or not boring match, a very one-sided match, became very competitive very quickly.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if either of you stayed up, but I went to sleep with Nadal comfortably up and then woke up to a lot of images and Tsitsipas stuff and random chats and was like, maybe I should have stayed up.
I was telling Steve afterwards in his press conference that Tsitsipas had said that before he served it out for the match, that he said he told himself, this is going to be the hardest game of your life. And he said that it was. But I thought that was a really impressive maturity from, somebody who still is quite young.
He could have. It's funny. He held on for dear life in the third set. There's no other way to describe it. It was just like you could just hear there wasn't much coming from his player's box. He was just kind of, he wasn't down. Like, he didn't show bad body language. He didn't throw his racket or yell or anything, but he was just hanging on. And then he gave away the first point of the tiebreak with a really, really soft error. And I was like, oh, well, here we go. I think Nadal's probably going to run away with it. And then Nadal missed 2 smashes and 2 forehands, I think it was. And then Tsitsipas didn't face another break point until serving for the match.
Naomi takes the first set here. Pretty impressive hold there. Again, Serena moving a little better here, but still seems to be kind of overhitting things. The live line now moved out to 4-1 on Serena Williams. The total still at 20.5. Again, do you guys have any opinions or thoughts here? The game spread on Osaka, it looks like you'd have to lay -5 or a very juicy -4.5. I mean, if you like Osaka to win this match, I almost like the under 20.5. I don't know if the second set is very long, if Serena's competitive. But do you guys see any value in these numbers? Again, Serena 4-1, Osaka a pretty big favorite, probably right around -5 games.
No, they're probably right around where they should be. I think what's going to be most intriguing here, the second set, are those first maybe 2 games to kick things off. You have to think, at least I think, Serena's going to make a little bit of a push here to make something happen, and we'll see if she's able to do that.
How about you, Steve?
Yeah, look, I'd probably, if I had to make a pick there, I'd probably go the under 20.5. So what's that? An Osaka 6-4 or better, coming off winning the first set and starting as a $1.62 or favorite, and reeling off, what was it, 6 of the last 7 games. It's hard to. Yeah, I think that's probably where I would side.
That makes quite a bit of sense to me.
Just outside the stadium, about 100 meters away, they've got the Phillip Island Trophy going on at the moment, and it looks like in the first semi-final we've got Danielle Collins and Kasatkina at the start of a 3rd set.
Come on, Danny.
So Kasatkina took the first set 6-2, and Collins was able to take the second set in a tiebreak, 8 points to 6. Looks like, what have we got here? Kasatkina served for the match twice and was broken both times, but didn't hold a match point on either of those or in the tiebreak.
Love it. I guess we're all happy here, as a show, as long as Andreescu doesn't win. I think the 3 of us picked the other 3 people that are left.
Pretty much.
We did, yeah.
I think you've got Alex. You've got Collins. I've got Buzkova and Kazakh. We all picked Buzkova.
We all
have Buzkova in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
All right, Serena back out here. Osaka already putting on the pressure. She took the first point. Serena's got the second. There we go. Starting to calm down here. Someone was really hoping this was going to be competitive. I'm starting to get a little nervous, but I like that Serena's yelling at herself. It's very odd.
It's going to go one way or the other.
Footwork looks a little better, too. That is one of my favorite things to watch, is really in any sport, but tennis especially. I try to watch the feet and see, how much they're moving, where they're getting. It looks like Serena's footwork is a lot better here.
Yeah, I think what's always interesting too, and it's something that I watch for in football with quarterbacks, but tennis is similar in that way of, are you taking little steps or are you having to take big steps? Sometimes you'll see players get this, running across the court to get this ball, and people put that on their highlight reels. But a lot of times when you see points like that, it's because the player themselves was out of position already, right? It's no different than, say, you're watching a goalie in hockey. When you see a save a lot of times wind up on the Sports Center top 10 on ESPN or something, it's because the goalie was out of position and he had to dive across the net. So I'm always intrigued seeing these players. Are they making little steps, small adjustments, or are they having to all of a sudden go driving across the court? It's one thing if the other player makes a remarkable shot, and it's a totally different ball game if it's because maybe your movements weren't necessarily the most efficient prior.
Yeah. How about you, Steve? What have you seen, from Serena so far to start here, now that she apparently is facing break point?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I'm not seeing a lot of promising signs. But outside of that burst of the first 2.5 games, that there hasn't really been more than 1 point at a time. Like, that she hasn't been able to get on a run and really kind of wrestle back any sort of control here, and it's basically all for Osaka to do whatever she wants.
Yeah, Osaka looks much more comfortable. Her little bounce and hops look better. She's doing that racket twirl thing.
And it's one of those ones when you look at what Osaka's doing, she's not painting lines by any stretch of the imagination. It is almost, in a weird way, completely different opponent, but very similar to what she was doing against Shea. You just use the pace, redirect it, put it in a position that the opposition isn't at, and Serena's just not covering the court as well. There's not that many shots when you go, and they're showing some of the first set highlights here in Australia. She's not, she's got a couple of feet to work with between where the ball's bouncing and where the lines are. She's not having to force the issue. And I think that's what too many players do against Serena. They're too focused on trying to hit the winner off that one shot, whereas Osaka's able to position her and pin her down in one corner and then go the other way.
There was a pretty remarkable stat that just came through Twitter from The Guardian, but they said in the first set, Serena had 0 forehand winners, 10 forehand unforced errors. You don't see that often.
Sounds like Tsitsipas at the start of the match yesterday.
Right.
That's wild.
And it makes you wonder if, Osaka, and what I'd love to know is how aware Osaka is of that, I guess, in that particular moment.
That would be a great question for a post-match interview kind of thing. Hey, this was the thing. Did you notice that? Because she's someone that I think pays attention, is a very smart player. I like what you said there, Steve. She's a little more creative than a lot of the power hitters that Serena has played so far, and I think she might have actually noticed something like that.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, if you can start to figure it out and go, well, hang on, this is. She's clearly struggling with this. It's not to say that it'll stay the same for the entirety of the match. I think we saw that last night with Tsitsipas. His forehand in sets 4 and 5 was a completely different forehand to sets 1 and 2. So things can turn, but she needs to make the most of it while she can.
Yeah, absolutely. Price moving in a big way here. Your underplay, Steve, would have been fantastic. It's already down to 18.5. Serena is 6-1 live. So let's see, it's 30-30. Let me see if that moved. But go ahead, Steve.
So 18.5. So they're banking on, well, not only Osaka to hold here, but at some point during the set to actually take another break and end up, 6-3, 6-3, which would mean she'd need either a double break or to break Serena serving at 3-5.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like you said, double break would be needed. It is interesting. Down to 17.5 now, under 17.5 though, plus money.
17.5. So I guess again, that's not a whole lot different. When you look at
Osaka minus 6.5 games.
Yeah, because what needs 18.5 to 19.5. 18.5 to 17.5 in terms of what needs to happen. It's just Osaka breaking a game earlier.
Yeah,
that was
Osaka
so.
Gets the ace there to close out.
Well, it was so impressive there from Osaka to have the double and then follow it right up with the ace. I mean, that's showing you how much in the groove she is, and 2 aces off of that double to make up for it to win the game. That's really impressive.
This is getting ugly.
It's getting very ugly.
Every time when we were prepping for the show, we kept saying, well, maybe we'll make a couple things in case the match goes by fast. But I didn't think that actually was going to happen. And I guess I certainly thought that if it did go by quickly, it wouldn't be Osaka who would be winning. So well done to her thus far.
This is a lot.
As someone who spent a lot of time talking about wanting to bet Serena here, I'm really glad that I didn't. I had a lot of respect for some of my smart friends that were all over Osaka here. So congratulations to them. thank you for keeping me off of Serena here. I thought this certainly would be much more competitive, but you're right. Osaka looks to be kind of on another level while Serena is trying to figure out what's going on in a disaster.
It's funny. So in terms of around Osaka, I just made a small play on her in the outright market after she beat Shea, just to kind of cover off what I've got involved, or cover off the majority of what I have involved with other players, which, if she continues this, is great that I've at least got that cover, but it doesn't make me feel so good about my Jennifer Brady ticket.
If Jennifer Brady wins tonight, I will definitely be hedging in the final. That's for sure.
It's yeah. I mean, she did push her at the US Open. What was that? That was a 3-setter, wasn't it? But
I'm not getting in the way of a runaway train.
Just just make sure you find your way to hedge, and then just put that on Tsitsipas to beat Medvedev.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that match tomorrow? I think it's clearly the most interesting one. Candace, not to underplay your boy Karatsev here, but I feel like maybe he's come to the end of the line, or do you feel differently?
No, I feel so as well. I mean, I'm glad he played well here, even if it was at the expense of Steve's hot takes. Apparently, he only needs him to win the French Open now to remain correct. I'm team Tsitsipas, I would say, against Medvedev, and both of them have been playing so well. But we spoke about it a bit when we had our mid Australian Open regathering here on our show. And what has impressed me the most about Stefanos throughout the course of this this tournament is that he seems just mentally smarter about the way he's playing his game. He's much more tactical. I think, he's always had that aggressive side, but it wasn't always used in the right moments. I think he did have a tendency at times to be kind of baited into being too aggressive and just hitting everything hard and going for lines. And he didn't need to do that. He's a good enough player to not have to do that. And so it feels like we've seen a real mental maturity from him on the side of his game, on the side of being able to come through tough matches like we saw last night. So I'm going to go with him. I think he's really grown, and that type of development at times can be more meaningful than even physically becoming better, if that makes sense.
How about you, Steve? How do you see the battle between the Russian and the Greek shaking out?
Well, Tsitsipas has been kind to me this tournament, and he could still be kinder to me if he could keep going here. But look, I still need to write up my whole preview for the particular match. But something that's worth noting is that you look at watch Tsitsipas across that fifth set, and you watch how fresh he still looked in that particular. They were out there for nearly 4 hours or somewhere kind of in that ballpark. He looked like he could go another set, whereas Nadal couldn't. Flip that. Medvedev beat Rublev in, what was it, an hour 50? It wasn't much. And he couldn't do his on-court interview afterwards because he had to be treated for cramp first. So flip that to, it's going to be another hot night tomorrow night. Tsitsipas played in the identical conditions last night. It's more humid, and it's going to be harder, I think. If Medvedev struggled in the heat of the day, he's going to struggle with the higher humidity and still warm temperatures. Tsitsipas has struggled across his career against Nadal. I mean, against Nadal too, but also Medvedev. But he's obviously made some pretty decent steps forward in terms of what he's been able to show on court in terms of his composure and his temperament to be able to actually be a chance. And I'm going to that match tomorrow night, so I've got a ticket to that. So when the tickets came out, I made the snap decision. It was either tonight's semi-final or tomorrow night's semi-final, and I had to sit there and I was like, I don't know what to do. It's all a bit of guesswork a little bit, but I'm considering how much money it costs to go to a semi-final, I am a little bit more grateful I'm getting Tsitsipas Medvedev than Karatsev Djokovic.
That's for sure. So maybe to ask a better question, do you think the winner of Tsitsipas Medvedev can take down the Jokers. It seems like we think Djokovic is going to take care of Carrot.
I think so. It'll depend on what When I say I think so, I mean they're probably going to be at a price that is value and worth. I don't think anyone's going to go in favourite against Novak. And when you look at the outright markets at the moment, he's already below $2 before the semi-final. But I think there is a chance for them to be competitive. But Novak having the extra day off is going to be a big advantage for him.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I guess I understand why they're trying to get as many matches in as soon as possible. But I found it very odd that they decided to let Novak play a day early. Did either of you have an opinion or a thought on that?
It's been that way for decades, I think, at the Australian.
I thought it was
Open.
almost always 2-2. Has it usually been 3-1?
No, it's actually the last couple of years. It definitely has been this way. They've tried to toss up. I think, keeping in mind that whoever wins on the Friday night, you still get 48 hours. So it's kind of 48 hours versus 72 instead of. But also, I think in the past there's been complaints by players if one has to play in the heat of the day on Friday and the other one plays at night.
Yes.
So on account of one you're playing during the day, which isn't the same conditions as what they'll see in the final, and they're also playing potentially in more brutal conditions if it's a hot day.
Yes.
So it ultimately comes down a bit to which side of the draw you're on at the start of the tournament. And look, these players, so Tsitsipas and Medvedev got an extra day off after ATP Cup compared, at the start of the tournament. I think they always have to figure out at some point things have to flip. And, for the women's, today they've figured that's the best way to flip things for them is to have Mahova and Brady play today. So there's 48 hours plus going into the final. But I don't think they're kind of, if you look at every Grand Slam, they're all kind of stuck with how they do it, whilst also trying to keep, for perspective here in Australia, that means both semi-finals are now in prime time on TV.
Yeah.
It makes sense, especially when you consider the 5-set versus 3-set angle. When you try to think about playing two men's tennis matches in the same day, you're right. Somebody is going to get kind of marooned, probably having to play in the afternoon versus playing 2 at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it just seems like a big advantage for whoever plays first, frankly. I wonder if that's more of an advantage than whoever has to play a hot afternoon match.
yeah, I mean, you see it's not a perfect system, right? Like you look back to, when was it? 2000, was it 2009 when Nadal played Verdasco in the semis and it went 5 sets and was like a bajillion hour match. And then, people were still worried about his turnaround from that to the final, even though it was 48 hours or a little bit less than, I guess, by the finish of that match until then. So it's not a perfect system, but I'd probably say this is the better of the two worlds. I think if you were, I mean, and I'm not a player, so maybe I'm completely wrong, but I would think that if you were playing, you would rather have maybe an unfair turnaround in the semis when you're still separated from each other than in the final when it feels like, now you're going to be playing each other and you're going to be suffering the repercussions from that if it happens.
Yeah, and I think that's what they've tried to do is that on the men's side, the player that is disadvantaged is still getting a longer break or an equivalent break for what they've had every other round coming in. Whereas that isn't the case. And, that's part of why the appeal is a little bit with Brady today against Mahova is that I think she will back up better than the Czech based off how they both looked yesterday on court.
Yeah.
It looks like Serena is going to hold here. Let's assume that. How much longer can she go, frankly, without getting a break? Does she need to break here or can she wait another game? What do you guys think?
The sooner the better. I mean, she hasn't. This set in particular, it's felt like Osaka hasn't really done anything remarkable. She's just getting the ball back, and that's pretty much all she's had to do.
What are the odds on Osaka 6-2?
Osaka 6-2 is, let me hit refresh here. This might not be right. The number I just saw was 3-1.
So
Yeah, apparently the number is 3-1.
2 holds and a break.
Yeah, seems
Yeah,
reasonable.
that's second favorite to Osaka 6-4 in terms of outright prices here. Not outright prices, but specific game prices. So 6-4 Osaka's most likely, then 6-2 Osaka, then 6-3, then 7-5 Osaka. I'm sorry, then 7-6 Osaka, then 7-3.
7-3.
I'm sorry, 7-5. Excuse me.
Like, wow.
Look at the two numbers at once here.
We needed the odds for that one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they don't have a no on 7-3.
It looks like we have a medical timeout out at the Phillip Island match with Kazakhstan.
Miss Collins needed a break.
Aww.
Well, she did just lose her serve to Love, so I don't blame her.
I've always thought it odd that you could take an MTO after your serve. I feel like you should have to wait until your serve.
I feel like MTOs have been a pretty large topic of conversation over the last 24 hours. I'm not sure why. I can't think of
We
it.
certainly haven't contributed to that.
I was listening to local radio this morning to the point, like, I very rarely message in, like, you know, it's like talkback stuff. And one of the people who'd messaged in referred to Ash Barty as clearly the worst world number 1 of all time.
Oh.
And I actually went a message back. I was like,
Ani Ivanovic has something to say about that?
Well, this seems a little bit dramatic, and it sounds like whoever it is that messaged in was a very big fan of Dinara Safina.
Oh, that's where I was going to go next. I was going to go there, though, because when you were just talking about the medical timeouts, I was going to say how I had just tweeted the other day. I said, these people have not seen enough Safin tape to know what medical timeouts for no reason means. So it was a segue. Yeah, Safina. Oh.
Looks like Osaka's got to 15 all here. Did you guys notice, we'll do a little bit of challenger talk while this is all going on. Ernest Golbus moving on again.
Oh my gosh, Ernie, he's the one who sparked the Khachanov. Yeah, Karatsev. He's the one who sparked Karatsev's run. So I live for Ernie. I mean, people think that like Nick Kyrgios doesn't care. Like, you haven't watched enough Ernest Golbus, and my goodness. I remember once, wasn't there like...
I have not watched enough Ernest Golbus. I just like his name's Ernie.
One of my favorite like quotes ever was from Golbus, and I'm sure, and he's had many of them, but in press conferences, like especially when he was first kind of coming up and people saw he had ability and he was just like chucking matches away. And at one point people were kind of calling him out on it. And he was just like, what? I just play tennis. Like, it's not my fault that I'm good at it. I don't really want to do this. And it was like so honest, but so him. It was great.
One of my biggest, like, if you could go back and change like scores of any particular matches over the last kind of couple of decades, if I could flip that and have him beat Novak in that Roland Garros semifinal, just having a Grand Slam final earning would have been quite a sight.
Oh, it would have been wonderful. It's like the ultimate tennis troll job.
And I think that's what I liked about him. Like, you know, back to those couple of years, like he used to just, you know, Nadal would be the other end of the court. He's like, oh, well,
he didn't care. Like, you could tell he was just like, well, whatever. Like, I'm just gonna play. Let's get this match over, and then I can go drink like 4 bottles of wine or something.
I think that was his story, that he used to go, like, when they played Monte Carlo, he'd play his match and then head over to the casino and be there basically until he had to play his next match.
Sounds like a lovely day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have to play a second match.
Mm.
It was funny. I was having
Go ahead.
On a similar thread, I was having a talk with a buddy of mine the other day. We were talking about for the men, especially juniors players, how, when you go through like the guys who were legitimately like the number one juniors player, how so often it just not only doesn't pan out, but it just like goes down in phenomenal flames. And the name John Luigi Quincy came up. And
Ooh.
go have a peek if you don't know who that is, because wow. Apparently at the moment he's 142, which is probably pretty good for him.
It is funny. It must be tricky growing up, like, all these players, and particularly, all the players who have, for the most part, family members as coaches for either the start of their career or, as Caro Garcia will do, for the entirety of the career and never make a change ever. Do you like, and I think this is what Alexander Zverev's family did with him, was, there were so many juniors who like trained and set themselves to be really good juniors, whereas Zverev never did that and was kind of always playing the long game and going, well, look, it's probably not going to work now, but this is actually what's going to be better, based on his brother. This is what's actually going to work for him once he gets to the, ATP Tour. And, you only see those couple, like Yannick Sinner just kind of went straight on, did a burst of junior, but nothing, significant. And you look at Alcaraz at the moment, they're not destined and pushing to be, the junior world number one. They're at a level where they can go, well, you know what, I'm going to play, and I can play.
Yeah, I mean, it's two different sports to a degree, right? I mean, to some level, it would almost be like if you're a baseball player, do you want to win the Little League World Series, or do you want to be on a actual World Series winning team? And yeah, so it's two different sports to that degree. But you're really right on that regard. That is it a game that do you want to play? What's going to allow you to win now when you're 13 or 14? Or do you want to be able to show the patience to, allow your game to mature? And you almost have to wonder if mentally you're stronger with the latter as well, because you've lost and you know what it's like to lose, and you know what it's like to come back from that. Because there is always, in any sport, for me as an observer, there is always the fear of that player, whether it's on an individual sport like tennis or even as part of a team sport, that player who's always won and doesn't know what it's like to lose. Because I do think there is a point where when you're going to be professional any sport, at some point you aren't going to dominate the way you did as a kid, and you're going to lose. And sometimes with guys or women, when it takes too long for that to happen, you really struggle, I think, to even process that.
We'll just have a quick look here. So we're at 4-3 in the second set. Mentioned, I think, during that midway kind of catch up on the tournament, Osaka's going big on her first serve, and she's not hitting a high percentage of them. She's going at 43% of first serves in at the moment. But when that goes in, she's winning 18 of 22, so 82%. Serena is also struggling on the first ball as well, so she's only getting 50% in. So I do wonder, though, when was the last time you reckon Serena went 0 for 3 on break point saves?
To me, the most shocking part is I'm surprised that both of them are 50% or less here on first serves. Again, I've been counting here as I'm watching, but that seems bizarrely low.
I think it's not too low for Osaka because she's been more aggressive across the fortnight. But I think she's actually done well to actually, win a decent amount behind her second ball. But it looks like there might be a little bit of a moment here.
See, love 30 here. Looking at the live line, money's coming in on Serena. She's back down below 4-1 here. She peaked right around 7 or 8-1.
Well, to get to love 30, that second point there was pretty facile from Serena. Didn't have to do too much, just redirect that ball and clean winner.
Yeah, Osaka struggling here to close out the match. Not close out the match, but anyway, we'll win a pretty big point here.
Triple break point.
Oof.
Got 3 chance here. Again, on my feed here is just a little behind, so I know how this ends. Curious to see if Osaka buries another one into the net. Yep. It's always interesting to me that at certain points, tennis players, and again, I know I'm oversimplifying this, but just really struggle to get the ball over the net. Whether it be serving, whether it be hitting backhands or forehands, but she seems to be in that spot where just the last handful of points she's just burying the ball into the net.
It's how I serve.
You got to go Arani, go underhand.
Oh yeah, we saw Moutet did a couple of those before he was knocked out as well. I guess Kyrgios too.
Once in a while, he sneaks one in.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna stand, like people joke about it, but if you're gonna stand that far back, then like you're kind of asking for it.
It's one of the things I've always wondered. Again, if you're playing like somebody like Rafa who stands all the way back like that, why don't you just have some sort of like really light kind of drop serve thing? And maybe it's underhand. Again, I don't know how hard it is to do some of that stuff, but I feel like there should be kind of like a change-up serve. But Serena gets a break here. We got a match.
I like when Kyrgios does it because he does it like almost like he's like a magician or something, just this little quick pop, and then just like walks off like he pulled a rabbit out of his hat.
He used it multiple times against Team, and the camera crew missed it every time.
I enjoy how smug he is.
And it was a double fault from Osaka.
Yeah.
Serena looking here live. I'll just hit refresh to double check, but it looks like she's just below 3-1. The total now up to 24.5. So it looks like we're expecting 3 sets at this point.
Big service game. So that was 3 double faults in that service game from Osaka.
Yeah, that's not great. Is Osaka wearing a Z necklace? It's one of the things I've always been curious. I don't understand why athletes play sports wearing jewelry. Like one of the reasons I think Zverev has never won a slam is because he has about 20 pounds of shit hanging around his neck.
Even
that has
like
to throw off your balance. I'm sorry. Even
the watches. I remember once I was watching a night match at Indian Wells. This actually was doubles. It was the Bryan brothers, and they were playing against Federer. Oh, who would it be? It wasn't Wawrinka. There was a different Swiss player that he'd play double with sometimes during Davis Cup. I can't think of who it was. But like
Ciudanelli?
Who?
Ciudanelli?
What?
Never mind.
The point is, so Federer had like his, they have their fancy watches on, and his watch, like the glare from the lights at the stadium off his watch, it was blinding. It was like a laser coming off of that thing. It was crazy.
I remember that. I did that this last time I wore a watch when I was in elementary school bored trying to annoy people.
Yeah.
Good way to
who he was playing with.
Good way to respond to having 3 double faults is to go up love 40 in the next service game from Serena, isn't it?
Some great returns too. Osaka just dominating these points.
So Serena, was it 0 for 3? Was it on breakpoint saves so far? So this is attempt number 4. Let's see what she can do.
We're right back. These are even worse now. 8-1. Serena is live. And it makes sense here. I mean, effectively, live markets price this situation like Osaka's already won the game. It could be a miracle.
Nope.
What happened? Oh. Well, here we go. What do you guys think? Can Osaka serve it out here and get it done? We got Serena live, 12-1. The live total. You go over 20.5 plus 320.
Nah, it's a no from me.
No.
20.5 plus 320. If we get to even 5-5, that's a cash. Ooh.
Look, had Osaka not just had a service game where she threw in 3 double faults and had that kind of loose service game, you could maybe make more of a case of it. But it'll be interesting to see if Osaka with this service game actually continues to try and go after her first serve, or kind of comes off it a bit and just gets the ball in play. Because when you lose 4 points in your previous service game and 3 of them you didn't even get the ball into a rally, that's it's not great.
So what do you think? Serena is a little better than 3-1 to win this game. Do we have any faith? That's a big number in a WTA for somebody trying to serve out.
For those wondering, which was like nobody except me, Federer was playing with Yves Allegro.
Ah.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
What would you say, Alex, the price goes to? It's funny, like the way Osaka served overall, I'm not inclined to go at that 3-1. But if Serena were to take the first point, what do you think? Where do you think the price would then drop to?
I don't know if it would drop a lot. I mean, Serena was right around, I think, 20-1 before we started here. Had she won that first point, that maybe goes to 15 or 16. Kind of at the end of a match here, up a set, it doesn't move a ton, and now everything's starting to shut down as we're at 30 love here. I'm sorry, I guess whatever betting website I'm using is just ahead of where flash score is, but it looks like we're on our way to a shorter than anticipated match.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. 40 love. Man, I knew I should have betted her 22.5. No WTA match should ever be 22.5.
Nope. Right, I got my minus 2.5 games, and Osaka
and then some.
Is through. So that's handy. So where to now for Serena?
I don't know. It's hard to tell, having watched that match, if she was ill-prepared or if she just doesn't have it anymore, because she hit a lot of really nice shots and looked confused at certain points. Again, I wonder if she kind of maybe gave herself a little time off and now is really starting to acknowledge some of the challenges. But at the same time, it looks kind of like the last few times she's played Osaka. There's more coming back on the other side of the net than she's ready for.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give props to our buddy, the whale capper, Drew, who was easily the most bullish, I think, of all of us on Osaka's chances, obviously before she had even gone through Halep. So he saw this one pretty clearly.
Absolutely.
Far, far too good, Naomi Osaka. I said, 15 minutes in, love 2:30.40, flips it, and it's 6-3, 6-4, and they're off in 76 minutes.
We thought it might be quick right off the bat. We didn't think it was going to go in this direction, though. It's remarkable, and it really shows you that she has what it takes, especially mentally. It would be so easy against Serena to think, oh, she has it today, this isn't my day, and that's not what happened at all. It was a dominant display, and you never would have thought that early on.
So if Osaka wins this tournament, what are we looking at this point? Is Osaka, do we ever get a chance to bet her better than 4-1 to win a hardcore tournament ever again? Does she drop down to 3-1, 2-1? What are we looking at here? Unless Andreescu really comes back and makes a run here for a while, it doesn't seem like there's anybody from a hardcore perspective that really is able to challenge Osaka. She's just gone through just about almost everybody at this point.
I think you get to that point with Osaka. Yes, she is probably going to be those prices at Grand Slams. I think she's still targetable to oppose in smaller tournaments. I think she is that pure case of a player who put them on the big occasion and put them in the big moment. Look at what she did at 15:40 down against Muguruza. She's the most, if you had to pick probably a WTA player to come through for you in some form of, tight position in a match, at a slam, I don't know how you can answer anyone other than Osaka.
Yeah, maybe even another way to ask the question, If you had to pick somebody to beat Naomi Osaka in a hard court match at this point, who would it be?
Jennifer Brady. Jeez.
I sort of believe that. It was something we were talking a little bit about pre-show. I'm a huge Sabalenka fan, and I think that Brady has all the physical gifts Sabalenka does, but with a lot more mental capacity to be cool and try to work around and be creative in some of these points. But it's hard. You start to go through it and look at it. Again, unless Andreescu becomes really healthy, unless Brady finds a level of consistency he's not quite there at yet, I don't. So we're looking at in the chat here. Trevor's putting up some names. Sabalenka. Sabalenka is just not there mentally. You look at somebody like Swiatek. I don't think that she has the game. I just think that Osaka is just at another level.
I don't think Swiatek. Yes, clay, but I don't think she's there yet on hard, and I think that showed in her loss to Halep. The problem for Swiatek is that she doesn't realize how good she is at defending.
Mm-hmm.
And she's almost at times too aggressive for whatever moment she finds herself in, and that can lead to errors like we saw in the third set against Halep the other night. It's more when you flip it back, yes, it's great when it comes off, but she is still a little bit too erratic. But if she just kind of played within herself a little bit more, a bit like we see Osaka do at times, that I think that she can take that next step. Sabalenka at Grand Slams is, I think I tweeted the other day, it's like, I'm happy to completely miss that bus till the end of time. If she wins one, then congratulations to her, but I'm not going to be disappointed having not invested financially in that win.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to force me to put up a player against Osaka for, to give her trouble on a hard court, I'd honestly almost be more inclined to go with one of the older players that can perform at a high level and just roll the dice, whether that's a Serena, whether that's an Azarenka. I mean, would either of them consistently beat her? No, but I would trust in their chances to beat her in one given match more than maybe the players of her own generation.
All right, guys, any other thoughts here on the last couple matches of the night? I know we kind of avoided the Djokovic-Karatsev match. I've got nothing there. I've got an over here in this next women's match. Or maybe I don't. I'm sorry, I don't have an over here in this match. I know, Steve, you've got Brady -3.5. I'm just going to write out my out right here. Candace, anything for you here in these last couple matches before Steve breaks down Brady -3.5 for us?
No, nothing additional. It's been fun.
How about you, Steve?
Look, the Djokovic-Karatsev, I'm looking at making a very small play on Novak at the minus game handicap. Nothing too dramatic. Basically, you're playing a game of how will Karatsev go in a semi-final in his first ever Grand Slam versus how fit is Novak. And when you flip it and you look at Karatsev in the quarterfinal, you go, yes, he was fantastic in wearing down Dimitrov, but also he dropped the first set 6-2 and had to face eight break points early in the second set against a player who couldn't even put his own socks on to go out on court. So there's two different ways you can look at it, and obviously it's a big occasion. And I just think, Karatsev, if you look at the last game of that first set that he completely threw away, that there is the potential that if there is a one-sided set, that a 6-3 could become a 6-1, and all of a sudden game handicaps become, pretty valuable in that middle spot. I'd also rather take the minus games because I think if Novak hurts himself, he is too prideful to actually let Karatsev beat him and will probably pull out to save his embarrassment. The Brady versus Mahova game, I've got 3 units on on Brady -3.5 games. We touched on it at the start. I just think the backup 24 hours later is more favorable for Brady. I think the form overall is favoring Brady here. She's the thorn in the side of every tennis writer around the world who wants to have a massive complaint about the hard quarantine that's taken place. She's the only one left, and she continues to prove everyone wrong. I just think, her variety, her serve, her ability to slice, I don't see her I don't see Mahova backing up quickly off the 24-hour turnaround and looking in a position to be able to play at a level we saw earlier in the tournament. I kind of write off that match with Barty was a bit of a mess. I can guarantee Mahova is not going to be taking a medical timeout. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how that all pans out. But I think, a break of serve per set, a 6-3, 6-4, or something along those lines would be a decent outcome, I think, for Brady. And I just got a comment here, I think from Darius in the chat as well. Now that, so personally, I've got a little bit on Osaka and a little bit on Brady, and he's obviously gone and chucked a little bit on Mahova at $11 as a hedge on the outrights to make sure that you don't come out with nothing if Mahova kind of pulls off back-to-back upsets. So that's obviously worth considering if you're still involved. But look, fingers crossed we can get a player in Jennifer Brady that we all liked pre-tournament into the final.
That would be lovely. Any other thoughts here, guys, before we wrap this a lot quicker live stream than we expected?
No, I think that's all good. Thanks for everyone who's tuned in, and look, feel free to get in touch with us at Eat Sleep Tennis on Twitter. Hopefully this is something we'll kind of incorporate into what we're doing moving forward if there are interesting games, and hopefully in the future they go for longer than 76 minutes.
Thanks for watching, everybody.